Hi, everyone. I am here with Honey Atkinson, who is a photographer, filmmaker, mother of two, beekeeper, and a homesteader. And we're actually here to talk about the realization of a goal that Honey has had for a long time, which is to create and publish her own online course. So welcome, Honey, and congratulations
Thank
on
you.
this great achievement of actually publishing your course. Let's talk a little bit about the story of this course. So why did you actually want to create it?
Well, I've been running in-person workshops for about 10 years. And I think after about 5 years, because I ran them in different locations, I started getting a lot of inquiries from different parts of Australia. And I just, logistically trying to organise that to make it work is a lot of work, especially when you've got young kids as well. And I kept on following up on leads and then kind of thought, oh, well, maybe I should think about doing an online version. And then I think almost every year when you come to that time of the year when you kind of feel like you need to be thinking about the year ahead and what you want to achieve and everything like that with your business, I'd be like, okay, this year is going to be the year that I do the online course. And so I probably did that for 5 years.
Wanted to
Every
do
year
that
I
for
said the
five
same thing.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still
So
didn't do it. And I think I probably just every time I would look at different ways of doing it, I'd start looking at the platform to use, and then I'd get lost in forums about what platform to use, and then I would look at, okay, what can I do a course on doing this, and then I'd get lost in the course options to kind of make that happen. Yeah, so then I kind of felt debilitated. It was almost like I just needed someone to tell me what to do.
yeah.
Um, with some direction, and I just didn't feel like I didn't have that at the time, so I just kept on waiting
Yeah.
until the right
And
moment.
and it wasn't until a joint contact of ours, Alana, who
Yes.
takes care of my website, and she did your website as well. Is that how you guys were
She did
working
our
together?
sales page. No, she
Okay.
actually a lady down here who I know through kind of homesteading type stuff.
Yeah.
She referred me to Alana,
Yeah.
and then I was chatting to Alana, and she said, and I asked her whether she knew of anyone who she'd recommend for building. I wanted to build a course, and who would she kind of use? And she said, actually, I know someone perfect.
Yeah.
And then I think that was on New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
just gone, so 2021 to 2022. And and then I clicked on your website, and then there was a course coming up where it was a one-on-one type session.
Yeah. Yeah.
And literally the next day I signed up, and I didn't know anything about you previously, but
Yeah.
I went through your
Yeah.
website and read all your messaging and went, okay, now she's it.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of this kind of rubbish that I keep reading that is
Yeah.
very misaligned with who I am personally. So yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of it felt like just the right moment. I'm like,
Yeah. So
that's it,
you,
gonna
you
happen.
did you did essentially the guided, mentored version of create a tiny course. So I actually forgot to mention what the name of your course is and everything like that. We might just jump over to your sales page now, just so
Sure.
those who are watching can go or stop asking, what are they talking about? What is the course actually about? So let me jump over here, and over here is where I want to go. All right. Okay, so your course is called Phone Photography for Business Owners. Um, it's on the Thinkific platform, but you're actually hosting the sales page on your site, which I think is a great idea. And I'm in the process of shifting to do that to do that as well. So let's have a
Yeah.
little look through. It's really lovely, really easy to digest page with some lovely photos that people will be able to take these kind of photos once they go through the course. And there's the lessons.
Modules. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, my computer might be loading a little bit slow. So yeah, I'm going to leave the link to the course under this video. But while I'm sharing, I'm just going to pop over to my site here because I went through your course And it was the perfect timing because this website here that we're looking at is just being launched. It was like a refresh of my existing website. And, you know, I really wanted to have the whole branding shoot and all of that. But I'm just not in like the location to do that. And for many different reasons, I just thought, I just know it's not going to happen. I'm not going to spend all that money because I just felt like I was going to be unhappy with it. So I really loved one of my favorite parts of the course was seeing you in action. Like literally you had the camera there, but then there was the other camera showing us what you were doing and like your movements and just you were just playing around like it was, and I'm like, I could do that. I could totally do that. So that really helped. And this photo here I took as a result of that. And I was just really experimenting, turning my head one way, that way, you know, all of this. And I really learned something about myself and the best sort of angle to take a photo of myself from doing that,
Yes.
which is this
Yeah.
angle. So
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
really happy with that. So that was one of the ones. And then there was a couple other ones that I want to just show because I think people will find this a bit interesting. I did take another self-portrait one, this one here. And this one I really liked. So this
I
one,
love that shot.
yeah, it's got my go everywhere leather bag, my retro styled pen EP5 it's called, my like much loved, what is it, I think it's like goats, what is that the right name? Goat's wool? Anyway, it's from this place in Spain,
Yeah.
this really rare place. It was very expensive, that, by the way. I totally love it. And so this was, I really, you know, what I picked up from the course was this idea of, yeah, taking photos of like your favorite things, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, I could do that. And there are a few ideas that I found along the way through doing your course. And then it took me a couple of adjustments and whatever to sort of get this the way I wanted it. But I really loved also how I had the mirror there, which is reflecting the wall behind, which is that stone. So yeah, that was
Which
a
is
lot
such
of,
a reflection of where you live as well, isn't it?
yeah,
Like the country
yeah,
that you live in. Like it's
yeah,
very, yeah.
yeah. So I just wanted to show everyone that because you too can do that, especially if you're thinking, well, you know, the whole branding shoot, and for whatever reason, you might not be wanting to do that at the moment. So let's see where we're at. I've got a few more questions. So yeah, you'd been wanting to do this for about 5 years, you just said.
Yes.
And then I guess in terms of what enabled you to finally do it, you know, I remember when, you know, you first reached out, one of the main things I think you said was like, I just need the accountability. It was something like that. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. And just wanted to be able to like go, okay, I've got to do this and I've got to have that submitted for review. And yeah,
Yes.
that can
Yeah.
work really well, can't it? You know?
Yeah. I feel like I've done a lot of courses, a lot. And I just, yeah, never finish them sometimes because of the size. Often
Oh,
they aren't
yep.
tiny like a lot of your courses are, but it also, I think the big element is just I wanted to be accountable to someone that I had to do the work. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, this idea of a tiny course, I mean, just like yours, I was able to get through it in like watch the actual tuition side of it inside of an hour, you know, about, I think it was. And it's similar with create a tiny course. So it's like the tuition bit is very concise and short, but it's like it's the other pieces that are involved as well that really help with implementation. And it's like we're
Yeah.
not spending hours and hours and hours and hours of watching content and then you go, oh, this is you know just don't have time for this. Like tiny courses, they're so powerful because they get done, they get finished, and you can then actually do stuff like I've taken some photos. You've actually published a course, you know. So that's why I love them so much. Was there anything particularly helpful or that you liked about the Create a Tiny course, like the way it was presented, the way it was, you know, that it guided you through?
I
Anything
think it
that?
was there was a decisiveness about your instructions. It was like you were really clear on, okay, so rather than being unsure about what platform to use, you're like, use this platform. And I was like, okay, so that took the guesswork out of it, because I think you get crippled into making progress, sometimes because there's lots of decisions to be made. Other times you're using it as a way of sabotaging your own progress, because it's another excuse in a way where you can get lost in the details. But then you don't have to be accountable, because if you don't finish it, then you're not a
Yeah.
loser, you know? So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like a safety net in a way. So I feel like that was one part of it, was like, well, um, you know, it's all laid out there, and it's sort of step by step, and there was
Yeah.
not really anything that was left kind of to be guessed. I just felt like
Yeah.
your hand was held the whole way through. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, I got this. Yeah, and also often seeing a lot of examples of what you had done in your own courses as well. And often I would watch what you'd done in the tiny course, and then I'd flick
Mm.
through a couple of your other courses that you had on offer,
Yeah.
and then kind of look through them all, and then go,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can see how she's implemented that in her own courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found that really helpful. Always
Yeah.
seeing examples of you kind of walking your talk kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, and I love that. It's similar to, I just interviewed Nora, who has just published her first tiny course, and she said something so similar. It's like, she was just like, I just followed it, and I just did what you said, and everything was very, precise, and so I could just be creative, you know.
Yes.
And
Yes. Very true. Yeah.
and I was sharing how that's so interesting, because initially the first version of this, I didn't zero in on Thinkific. I was just
Yeah.
like, sort of like, well, I use Thinkific, but you could use blah blah, whatever. I picked a few, of the main ones. And then eventually I just went, oh, for goodness sake. Like, I think maybe because I could see people were getting a little bit stuck on that.
Yes. They get
And
lost on things that don't
yeah,
actually matter in the end. Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll be like, just use Thinkific. Just use what I'm
Yeah.
using. And then I went, let's just do that. Let's just, next time we
Yeah.
make this. And so this is also a really good lesson for everyone when they're creating a tiny course, because it's like, if I look at, well, why did I do that? Why did I go, oh, you could also use this and this and this? Because you think you're being helpful by presenting
Yes.
multiple options.
Yes. Yeah. But it's
Turns out
overwhelming for people
it's
who
not
don't
really
know.
helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my students haven't used Thinkific, and that's fine, but they were already just very clear, because maybe they'd already started on another platform, or they're just very clear, and that's perfect as well. But yeah, so
Yes.
that's,
Yeah.
it's just like another little lesson about keeping it simple, because tiny courses are not about sharing everything we know on a subject.
Yeah.
It's just
Yes.
sharing enough so people can actually get that thing done. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Which I have trouble with.
yeah.
Not sharing everything.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm just trying. I know I've had a number of conversations. I'm pretty sure I share that in the course. Like, what do you do if you're kind of thinking, but what if people don't have that bit? And what if people do? What then I often say, well, you could have that, you could offer that, but maybe put it in the resources, like have a link to it in the resources. So it's not one of the main tutorials, but it's there if people need it, and then it feels less overwhelming. Okay, so let's talk about, how long did it take roughly for you to actually publish your course from go to where?
I'd say from beginning to end, when we first started the coaching session, was 6 months, but in between that, like there was other stuff going on in my life as well. So I've got 2 young kids, running a business. We're sort of living on a block in a caravan, trying to build a house. So there's a lot of moving parts going on that isn't kind of standard normal living arrangements. So yeah, that was probably more stressful than it needed to be, but I managed to kind of fit it in the early hours, like just adding things like early starts in the morning, and just to
How
build
many hours a
content and think
week
up ideas.
do you think
I'd say on average about 3 hours a week. And then when I was in the middle of shooting, like that was pretty intense. I was probably doing
some
like,
weeks
I think I did a
no
couple of weeks.
hours?
Yeah. And
Oh.
those 1 or 2 weeks I might have did like 20 or 30 hours kind of thing. But they were, like that was a lot of filming. I wouldn't say that one was the average course. I think a lot of the examples of what people are doing that I've seen afterwards is there's a lot of content being shared that can just be shared as far as screen,
Yeah,
text on screen, but because when you have something like a visual medium like photography or anything where you have to physically show someone, and also there's photography and then there's the editing part of it, there's a whole lot of sort of moving parts that go into it that maybe just add a
absolutely.
bit more complexity. Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
yes, I made it more complicated than needed to be, but I wanted it to feel like that
yeah.
people were there with me in person. So,
Honestly, it is such the finished product is just so freaking amazing. Like
thank
it's
you.
really like next level. And yeah, it's although it's a tiny course and although it's ultimately very simple to get through and very, very helpful, I can see, and I did say this during the process, didn't I? So like, I mean, you're putting so much into it. I mean, it's just beautiful. Your slides are absolutely beautiful. They're way more beautiful than mine. And then there was that shooting element, but that was so worth it because I, as someone who went through it, I loved seeing that. I loved
Oh,
seeing
that's
like there was
good.
essentially two cameras, like there was the
Yes.
one you
Yeah.
were working on, and then the one
Yes.
showing what you were working on, and
Yes.
it was just great.
And
Like,
sometimes I had a second camera, so I'd have one camera from one view,
yeah,
a second camera from another view with both big cameras, and then
yeah,
me shooting with my phone. So it was yeah, I think it was a crazy brain exercise to make it happen,
yeah,
to make it feel
yeah,
like you were there with me.
yeah,
Yeah, but I think it was
yeah.
work. I'm really glad, even though it
Well,
was a lot of work, I'm glad that I did it.
yeah. And this is the thing, you wanted to sort of, as much as possible, create the environment that you did when you did it in person. Hey.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's hard
So,
to once you've done that for a long time and you've had that
yeah,
experience, it's kind of hard to give that up.
yeah,
Whereas if you're kind of starting fresh, then you can kind of create your own rules from the beginning. Whereas for me, I
yeah,
guess maybe it was maybe part limiting as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. So what else? Yeah, would you do anything differently if you wanted to create another tiny course?
Um, Maybe like as far as how the course kind of has come together, I think maybe only in hindsight I can reflect on that again. But now I can kind of see that in a way the course possibly could have been broken down into like a couple of courses, or
Yeah.
whether I sold it as one and then there was the option for because of the way the modules are broken up,
Mm,
there could have been just the option for just doing learning about editing. And so maybe having some foresight and thinking, okay, I could build this as one course and that's the main one, and then I can split it up into some smaller ones, so then there's a smaller buy-in amount, or like a really specific topic. Okay, this person just wants to learn how to edit their photos, and
mm,
then I could use that same thing that I've already shot rather than redoing the whole thing, and it was
yeah.
just for that, or one just for planning your
Yeah.
shoots. I had
Yeah.
some feedback from someone recently who did the course, and she said that she loved it, and she's a soap maker, and she used it to actually build the shot list and content for her actual professional shoot. And so
Mm,
she's still taking her own photos, and that helped her for
yeah.
her own content. But she had planned a photographer to shoot for her,
Yeah.
and then so she created all the Pinterest boards, and then she sent the photographer the links and broke down all the parts of what she does. And the
Mm,
photographer that she worked with said, "Oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like it before. You're so organized and
yeah.
so clear about your brand and your messaging." And she said it
Yeah.
was just so much smoother to work with. And I was like, that was a bit of a light bulb moment. I thought, oh, okay. So people could actually just use this to plan their own photo shoots, even if it was with a
Yeah.
professional photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So
as a
that's when I
test
thought that's
drive
probably its
and
own. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think
And
probably just saying that it could be more than one course.
yeah. And on
Yeah.
that sort of train of thought, when you talk about the course, you can talk about it in that way as it being a solution for that. Like it's sort of,
Yes.
yeah, like in my case, it was the alternative to doing the what that other student did. So like doing
Yes.
it myself,
Yeah.
but she was preparing to have it
Yeah.
professionally done. There was something else I was going to mention. Oh yeah, just that I mean, you've probably thought of this, but even right now, you could still make available for purchase some of these individual lessons.
Yes, absolutely. I was
If
thinking of
yeah,
making one up for the sheep planning one. I
yeah,
think that's kind of
yeah,
a really good especially because for people that I can't shoot but are also interested in the style of photography that I do,
Yeah.
the other part of my business being able to kind of have that as a bit of an add-on, or even giving
Yeah.
it to people to prepare for their own shoots.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a light bulb moment, so I'm pretty excited about that as its
Yeah.
own little module. Yeah.
Cool. And so now that it's all done, it's published, like, how do you feel about, how has it made you feel?
It feels incredible. Yeah, it just that kind of sense of achievement, knowing after thinking about doing something for 5 years and then not achieving it kind of every year, I was actually I just thought it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And even when I, like the day before I signed up for and I was looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, like if I sign up for this now, I'm like committing to it. I have to get this done because I'm so sick of talking about it. So
Yeah.
it feels, to have such a big long-term goal
Yeah.
like that and kind of tick it off the list, it feels amazing. Yeah. And I feel like there's potential to, which is just totally me. I do one thing and I'm like, okay, so what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
What else can I offer?
Because once you've done one, the next ones, are probably going to be a bit easier. Well, certain aspects of them, because you've already got the format that you like.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I've had I've had a few people do my course who gave me some like really good feedbacks, which I've kind of written down. So very constructive. They kind of broke it down module by module, all the things that I can kind of improve on kind of next time around. So I think if I ever do a change to it, I've got some really great, very kind of thoughtful comments to kind of help me along the road.
Yeah, and I find that, like, every 12 months or so, well, actually, in truth, not long after it's published, I already want to change it, right? So just for anyone who's listening,
yes,
that's a thing.
That's me. Yeah.
But I'm like, because normally there's just I really do need to move on to other priorities rather than trying to make something perfect.
Yes.
So, but I sort of, I see how it works now. It's like, well, maybe in a year I will. And those things that I've recognized, that can just go on the list of things to improve, So
yes. Yeah. And I remember mentioning to you not long after I'd finished it that I was already thinking about the changes that I can make. And you're like, ease up, just maybe wait in a year's time. I know, because they keep coming. Exactly. And I'm glad that you said that, because the perfectionist in me, which is probably part of the reason that I didn't get it done in the first place. I'd like, okay, you just need to calm down and just bask for a moment in this feeling and be grateful and move on, because there'll always be something to change.
Yeah. So I've got one last question for you, and this is really about, women like us in business. Some people are very comfortable with showing their face, showing who they are. But what about the people who go, do I really need to show myself? Can't I just talk about what I do, or just show pictures of what I do, or, that kind of thing? What, I'm sure you've had that come up. We've kind of talked about that.
I've got so much to say on this topic.
What's the main thing you want to say, or what's the first thing you want to say?
I'd probably say that I say it all the time. People probably get sick of hearing it, but that people buy from people. And so I think, especially if you aren't kind of a large corporation or anything like that, and you're a small business owner, that people, if you wash dogs or whatever, like there's a million people who wash dogs. So what makes you different to someone else? And so I feel like that sharing who you are, it's not necessarily always sharing this kind of beautiful picture of you, but people want to be able to actually, when they're seeing you talk about your business and all the other aspects of your life that make up who you are as a person, which also reflects the way you run your business, they need to see your face. They need to see who they're talking to. It doesn't have to be like those influencer type photos where you're taking a million selfies and you got your boobs out. Like, it's just not what it's about. I'm not into that. It's not I'm past that generation. But I really believe that even when I'm talking to people on social media or even online, and there's no photo or anything that represents who they are, I actually find it really hard to have a conversation, because I like to picture people's faces in my head. Like, who am I talking to? So you might have a chat with someone, you have this kind of really genuine exchange with someone, and then I find when there's a bit more that they've shared about who they are, with some photos of who they are and other aspects of their life that make up their story, I'm much more inclined to buy from them at some point in time when I need that thing,
Yeah.
because I feel vested in that person. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's a big thing. That's
Yeah.
probably the number one, I'd say,
Yeah.
definitely. And I know we all have our issues with how we look, and there's lots of things that kind of frustrate me about that, as far as it's, how we all are made to feel as women about us not being perfect and not being good enough, and
Mm.
all that kind of rubbish that goes along with that. And I find that I guess really sad and frustrating. For quite a few years before I did commercial photography, I used to take photographs of families and kids and stuff. And so for years I'd be photographing the same families, and the mums would say the same things every year. They wouldn't be in the photos because they were too fat, and next year they'd lose weight and they'd be in the photos, and I'd hear the same thing. And for 10
Mm.
years I'd hear the same thing, where these people were never represented in
Mm.
their story. So I was like, so there's sort of many aspects to this as well, where I kind of feel like that, you don't have to be a mother, but just not showing up ever in your story. Like, do you
Yeah.
exist? I mean, there's those kind of moments that you have in your life, just showing up and being
Yeah.
there, and you exist as part of your kind of story in life as well, and
Yeah.
not letting the fact that you're not thin enough, or you're too old, or
Yeah.
there's something wrong with your face, kind of thing. Because reality is that tomorrow you're going to be older again, and you're probably going to be fatter. So
Yeah.
like, none of
Yeah.
us get thinner and
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
beautiful. So just making acceptance, I guess, in who you are. And I feel like the more you kind of see photos of yourself, the more you're like, oh well, that's just
Yeah.
that's who I am. Yeah.
And well, it can require really some deep work,
Yeah,
to
it does.
actually
Yeah.
do that. And then at the same time, you can just take an approach, or you can take on the understanding that in many ways, the more imperfect you are, the more approachable you are,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah. Because when
The
you're talking to someone who's got, they've got this crazy perfect, they look like something out of a magazine. It's very uncomfortable and kind of
Mm.
daunting to kind of talk to that person. So I think the
Yeah.
more real you are, yeah, and also
Yeah.
just showing up and giving other people permission as well.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
yeah,
the other thing.
like
It gives other people permission as well. It's
it
like, well,
does.
they
Yeah,
can show up
it's
like
like
that.
being,
Maybe I
yeah,
can.
yeah, it's like being a part of your group, your kind of
Yeah.
coaching group
Yeah.
online, the tea room, and um, is hearing that when you have these difficulties about showing up, or just feeling like you haven't done the work, or
Yeah.
whatever you're doing isn't good enough, and then you hear other people writing exactly the same thing, you're like, oh, okay, that's great.
Yeah. It
So it's
normalizes it.
all, it
Yeah.
does, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially as women, it's just so important to kind of to share that, rather than kind of putting on this pretend face and that everything's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just sharing all the wins and just sort
Yeah.
of like normalize the other stuff as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then one more thing I just wanted to say in relation to that first bit, just about showing your face in general.
Mm.
What I find interesting is the people who, like, or the conversations I've had about that kind of thing. I'm like, well, how do you buy? Like, why did you decide to buy from me? Why did you decide to
Yes.
buy, and it'll be like, yeah, videos and photos and, so like they had this experience of getting to know Danny through photos and whatnot.
Yes.
But they're not connecting the dots.
No.
So
Yeah.
you've got to do that too. Like, it's
Yeah.
human nature.
Yes. And it,
And
like, there's no doubt about it. It's hard. Like,
yeah,
taking your own photo or having your photo taken. It's at times it's
yeah,
incredibly uncomfortable. Like, there's nothing, but I feel like it's one of those things, like a muscle. For me, I hate public speaking, like in front of a group,
yeah,
massive group of people. I feel
yeah,
incredibly nervous and have trouble holding it together. But you just uncomfortable things kind of require you just that kind of push. And
yeah,
unfortunately, when you sell something as part of your business, you have to kind of, it really does help just sort of share who you are, so people
yeah,
can relate to you and connect with you. Yeah, exactly. Like, when I'm reading your messaging on your website, I'm seeing your photo, I'm thinking, okay, she looks genuine. I'm
yeah,
looking at your there's all these things I'm making judgments on about
yeah,
how like, okay, cool, so she's not like really fake looking. Her work, like the way she writes and the way you talk about you being kind of honest and real, I feel like that's showing up in the way that you see your photograph as well. Like, there's not a
yeah,
misalignment. Your
yeah,
words match your face, and the way you
yeah,
present yourself, I feel like it's a complete reflection
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, it is. There was one more thing I kept wanting to ask you, but I think it slipped my mind. All right. Well, this has been really fun talking about your course. Oh, there was a thing that I did. This wasn't the thing I'm trying to remember, but I'm remembering something new that I just want to make sure people know. And unless things have changed, honey, but you've got the tiny course, but there is also an option to join a community where you can share like your photos and whatever, like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
engage with other students. I should get in there myself. I will get in there. I'll share some photos because I think that just helps when you see other people sharing photos. It's like, I mean, that one with the hat and the poncho and whatever, I base that on like kind of an idea that I'd seen, and that can be really helpful. You know, it's like
Oh,
just
totally.
start with an idea and then I made
Yes.
it my own. So yeah. So that's available too. Anything else you wanted to add that is important for people to know about your course, honey?
No, just that I've tried to make it pretty kind of real and approachable. It's not perfect, and it's not about kind of creating the perfect image.
I
It's just
think it's
trying to
perfect.
find your oh no, thank you. But it's kind of it's not, I'm me,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's no kind of pretending to be someone else. And I think the style of photography that I'm interested in is quite authentic and pretty down to earth. And so that's probably most of the direction of the course is always about searching for photo aspects, and the way I edit and everything like that is just to do with being, just making it look like real life, a little bit better than real life, not this kind
yeah,
of pretend version
yeah,
of our lives. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for making time to have a chat about this. Yeah, it's been really fun. And
Thanks, Danny. I'm
yeah,
so grateful, honestly, for
yeah,
the coaching and the hand holding through
yeah.
this process, and
You-
the cheering on along the
You're
sidelines. It's,
welcome.
yeah, very grateful.
And I just really encourage people to take Honey's course because it is so helpful in so many ways that we haven't even got to yet. But yeah, so I'll leave the link below, as I said. And thank you for watching, everyone. And bye for
Thank
now.
you.
Thanks, Honey.
Thank you.
Bye.